Hi Hub, happy Tuesday. Welcome to Lunch with Laura again today. I wanted to give you a little preview today of what we're going to talk about next week, and then we will go ahead and go over what we're going to talk about today. So on Sunday, we had a little poll in the Hub, and we asked, what are some of the questions that you would want answered? And what I thought we would do for next week is we're going to take the top 3. So if you haven't responded to that yet, go ahead and check it out. It was posted on Sunday. And the top 3 so far that we had were, how do I take what I already know and then use it to find clients? And one was, how do I market myself? And then the third was time management and the whole stigma around the work-life balance. So as of right now, those are the 3 that we're going to go over next Tuesday. And because there is the time management in there, our resident expert, Lisa Crilly-Malice, will be with us. So we're going to do our first split live. But I know she'll be able to shed some really great light on that for us. And then, we can dive into those other 2 questions that we had on the poll. So for today, what I'm going to talk about is pricing your services. And the reason that this came up is because our beta group went through module 3 last week of the VA school. And one of the lessons in there is about pricing your services. And I have to say that I think everybody had questions around that because it's a very sensitive, but it's also a very broad thing to talk about and to figure out. And sometimes it really gets people stuck because they just think, I just don't know how to price my services. So I wanted to just talk about a couple of different ways that you could price your services. Just some things to think about, but you have to remember that this is all, your pricing is really dependent on your expertise, how long you've been doing something, what are the industry standards? Like we have one girl that she wants to be a real estate VA, and she's looking more to not necessarily do it virtually, but to actually help realtors on location. And what is so special though about her in particular is that she has a Series 7 license, which is going to put her above a virtual assistant who doesn't, because she'll be able to do more. So it's things like that that are really going to make a difference. But again, you still have to have a starting point. So I wanted to go over a few things to think about when you're pricing your services. So one formula that a lot of people will go by is, first of all, figuring out if you want to work part-time or full-time, because that's huge. It's going to make a really big difference. So figure out the amount of hours that you actually want or need to work, like let's say in a week, okay? Then what you want to do is you want to take part-time, full-time, how many hours do you want to work? And then if you take that, you will be able to figure out your hourly rate, okay? So if your hourly rate comes out to, hi Jess, if your hourly rate comes out to $75 an hour and you have been a VA for 2 months, you're probably not going to get $75 an hour. So you also have to be realistic, but it's not saying that you can't get there, but you just have to find a starting point for yourself. So just keep that little formula in mind when you're trying to figure all of that out. Some other ways that you can price your services though without going hourly is you can have a retainer. So you could say, I want to work for somebody, I won't work for anybody less than $350 a month. Well, you need to figure out though, and granted, a retainer, you can work less months. It's almost like a salary, which is the way one of the beta students presented it, which she's right. Think of it like a salary. Sometimes you're going to work a little less, Sometimes you're going to work a little bit more, but you're always going to get that consistent rate. But you still have to have an idea in your mind with the services that you're going to offer within a retainer. You need to keep something in mind there that you're not going to be working more like double the amount of time that you want to put in, because then you're going to be working more than you need to and not making enough money. So you still always have to have it in the back of your mind about how long is this going to take me. Some months could be a little less, some months could be a little more, but you just want to make sure that if you're doing a retainer, a lot of people typically will say, I will give you 5 things that I'll do for you in this retainer. So maybe it's managing your email, managing your calendar, making travel arrangements. Let's say that there's those 3 things. Those can fluctuate, but they're typically not going to fluctuate a lot. So again, just a couple things to think about with the retainer. Hourly is obviously much simpler, but then you really need to keep track of your hours. And there are some that, when you're starting out, I do think hourly is a good way to go, especially if you're new to the VA space, period, because it's going to take you a little bit of time to figure out how long is this taking me. It might be different with different clients. You really need to kind of find your way. But just keep in mind that once you get past that point, once you are comfortable with your services, comfortable with what you're offering, comfortable quoting somebody a retainer, go ahead with the retainer so that you have that consistent salary coming in every month. The other thing is project-based. If you're a creative and you want to do a website, or you're doing graphic design, so you could charge by, maybe it's a social media post that you're designing graphics for, so you could charge by the post. You could charge by the, if you're doing a brochure, flyer, whatever it is, whatever the actual piece of content is, you could charge by the content. So project-based is a lot easier with creative work. Actually, when we started the agency, we did everything hourly, and for the creative people, that was a nightmare because it's very hard to be creative when you're watching the clock. So if you are creative, I would not suggest doing hourly. If you're new to it, do a couple of practice, projects on your own, figure out how much time it takes, and then kind of base it from there. And also remember, you're not married to your pricing. But you have to have, like with everything else, you have to have a starting point. And then the other thing that we had talked about too, when we had our check-in call with the beta group, is doing things task-based. So some agencies will say, okay, for $25 a month, we'll do 5 tasks for you. 3 tasks might be really time-consuming, and 2 tasks might take a couple of minutes. So that is another thought. If you want to just start doing things more, if you are an admin VA, for example, and you want to start doing task-based, so you could do something like, I'll set, one task you would have to really structure what your tasks could include though, because somebody could have 5 steps to a task and you might think, well, that's actually 5 different tasks. So there's a lot of figuring out that you need to do ahead of time. But these are just all options for you to keep in the back of your mind so that when you are pricing your services, you have a few different options. And then the other thing that I really tried to stress to everybody, and I want to stress to you, is once you set your pricing and you're confident in it, don't lower your prices for anybody. Because all that's going to do is people are going to know that they can talk you down. If you don't have that complete confidence, like I am worth $30 an hour or I am worth $50 an hour, if you're confident that you have enough expertise and you've been doing this long enough and you can walk in and you can say that, don't tell somebody if they say, well, you're too expensive for me. Well, okay, well, maybe we could do, $5 an hour less. No, you stick with your pricing, because I guarantee you that if somebody is just shopping services for pricing, you do not want to work with them, because they are going to nickel and dime you to death. So you need to be really firm with your pricing and then stick to it, because if they're not going to pay the prices that you have decided on, then they are not your client. And that is another like whole thing that we talk about in the course, but you get to pick your clients because this is your business. So make sure that you are only choosing people that align with not only your values, but that are able to afford the services that you're paying. Because, and this is something that I said to the group, if your clients that you're starting out with are a pain in the ass in the beginning, they are going to be a pain in the ass the whole time. I guarantee it. I've lived it for years. Like I said, I've done this for over 20 years. So I'm telling you that when somebody is giving you a hard time up front, they're going to give you a hard time throughout the entire relationship. So stay away from them. Run. Tell them, thank you. It was great talking to you, but we cannot work together because these are my prices and I am very firm and set on these. So if you guys have any questions, I don't think there's anybody else on now but Jess. But if you guys do have questions, once you go through and you are listening to this, go ahead and throw them in the comments. I will be happy to answer it the best way that I can. So again, quick recap. Some of the different ways that you can price for your services: retainers, hourly, project-based if you're creative, and task-based if you want to do some type of retainer and say, I'll do this many tasks for you and wrap it into this retainer package. And then just again, quick recap for next week, or preview I should say. It's going to be Lisa and we are going to be going over the top 3 questions that we talked about, or that were in our poll, I should say, on Sunday. So if you haven't, put your thoughts down on that, go ahead and do so. Because if anything changes, we'll go ahead and adjust. But right now, again, we're going to talk about time management with the work-life balance, which I just want you to know it's really not a thing, but we'll be able to give you some tips on it. How to market yourself, and then how to take what your specialty is, basically what you already know, and attract clients with it. Okay? So I hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday and enjoy the rest of your week. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.